Howdy, my name is Aliana Chavez. As I near the end of my journey in the special education master's program here at Texas A&M, I'm filled with many mixed emotions. However, one thing is certain. This program has transformed me into a more competent special educator. This educational investment will undoubtedly fuel my personal and professional mission to enhance the educational experiences and lives of individuals with disabilities. This academic and personal growth that I've experienced in the program is beyond words, and I owe it all to my dedicated professors. Let me share my fundamental understanding of applied behavior analysis. I've not only learned but applied this knowledge in various projects throughout my master's program, each serving as a testament to my ability to use applied behavior analysis in the field of special education. It is important for us to begin by defining behavior. So, what is behavior? Well, put simply, behavior is anything a person does. Behaviors can be broken down into two categories: challenging behavior and positive behavior. Challenging behavior can make a child's life or their family's life challenging and might include things like hitting, kicking, biting, or distracting peers. Positive behavior can make a child's life or their family's life less challenging and can include things like sharing, keeping hands to oneself, and using the correct voice volume. What is important to remember when defining behavior is that it must be objective. When we are defining behavior, we want to include the definition of the behavior, examples of the behavior, and non-examples of the behavior. We do this so that there is a very clear understanding of the instances and non-instances of the target behavior. We also need to remember that behavior is a method of communication. This is especially true for students with limited verbal abilities due to their age or disability. Some children may not know how to communicate their wants and needs, so they use challenging behavior instead. Some children may know how to communicate, but find that challenging behavior is easier or more effective for getting what they want or need. Now that we have defined behavior, let's define applied behavior analysis using a quote. Applied behavior analysis, or ABA, is the science in which tactics derived from the principles of behavior are applied systematically to improve socially significant behavior, and experimentation is used to identify the variables responsible for behavior change. If you do not already know where that quote comes from, I'll give you one guess. Yes, the Cooper textbook. There are some keywords that I would like to highlight from this quote: science, principles of behavior, socially significant, experimentation, and behavior change. Science and experimentation. ABA is an evidence-based science, and various successful experiments have and continue to support its usefulness, quality, and effectiveness. Principles of behavior. ABA uses the governing principles of behavior as a guide and teaches that behavior is controlled by consequences, reinforcement increases or strengthens a behavior, and punishment decreases or weakens a behavior. Socially significant behaviors. ABA emphasizes that target behaviors for change should be ethical and socially significant, meaning these behaviors can improve the lives of individuals, their families, and society. Behavior change. ABA highlights that we can increase a person's positive behaviors and decrease their challenging behaviors by modifying and shaping behaviors. I want to highlight another foundational principle of ABA that I learned while in the master's program: the use of ABC data collection. Data collection is the foundation of any intervention, whether academic or behavioral. Before implementing a behavioral intervention, it is imperative that we, teachers, collect ABC data. ABC data collection allows for the documentation of the following. 1. Antecedent. What action or event happened immediately before the behavior occurred? 2. Documentation of the behavior. What specific behavior did the individual elicit? And 3, documentation of the consequence. What happened right after the behavior? When we think about reinforcement and punishment, we want to look at the C, or consequence, section of our ABC data collection. As a reminder, the consequence of the evoked behavior is what happened right after the behavior. The consequence of the behavior can either strengthen or maintain the likelihood that the behavior will happen again in the future, or weaken the likelihood that the behavior will happen again in the future. There are 4 types of reinforcement and punishment: positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. Positive reinforcement is the consequence of adding a pleasant stimulus to increase or maintain the likelihood that the behavior will happen again in the future. Positive punishment is the consequence of adding an aversive stimulus to decrease the likelihood that the behavior will happen again in the future. Negative reinforcement is the consequence of removing an aversive stimulus to increase or maintain the likelihood that the behavior will happen again in the future. And negative punishment is the consequence of removing a pleasant stimulus to decrease the likelihood that the behavior will happen again in the future. After understanding if we were reinforcing or punishing an individual's behavior, the ABC data sheet allows us to hypothesize the function of the behavior or behaviors the student is evoking. The possible functions are sensory, access to a feel-good sensation; escape, access to avoiding a demand; attention, access to attention; or tangible, access to an item or activity. Once we've collected our data and hypothesized the function or functions of a challenging behavior, we can now make the database decision to introduce replacement behaviors. Replacement behaviors are behaviors deemed more appropriate or socially acceptable that will be taught to replace the previously shown or used challenging behavior. It is important to remember that replacement behaviors must serve the same function as the original behavior. Now that I have covered some of the foundational ABA principles, I will discuss how I applied my knowledge of ABA in various projects, which will also echo my ability to use ABA in the field of special education. In SPED 601, Assessments in School Settings, we completed the Functional Assessment Hypothesis and Interview project. We were tasked with conducting several observations of an individual and collecting ABC data. We then used our ABC data, functional assessment observation data, and functional assessment interview data to develop a hypothesis and summary statements for the function of the target behavior. This project highlights the use of ABC in observational data collection, interview-based data collection, and the functions of behavior. In SPED 605, Leadership and Applied Behavior Analysis, we completed the Supervision Packet project. We were tasked with creating feedback forms for supervision. These forms were to be used to provide feedback and serve as an evaluation tool for performance monitoring and feedback. This project highlights the use of behavior analytic supervision in an effort to monitor, support, and enhance supervisee performance. In SPED 642, Prevention, Support, and Intervention for Students with Emotional Behavior Problems, we completed the Behavior Intervention Plan project. We were tasked with demonstrating our understanding of Tier 3 supports, including methods for observing, assessing, and analyzing challenging and severe behaviors. We identified an individual with challenging behavior and conducted a functional behavior assessment, planned for a functional analysis, created a behavior intervention plan, and identified a plan for data collection and progress monitoring. This project highlights the use of evaluating the functions of behavior, the use of the functional assessment, assessing and creating setting events, teaching strategies, consequence strategies, and generalization strategies, and the creation and use of the fidelity checklist. In EPSI 660, Single Case Research, we completed the research-based single case study. We were tasked with planning a single case experimental design research study and developing a replication intervention protocol to improve the quality of life for individuals with an identified concern. This project highlights the replication of a single case experimental design study in a systematic manner to ensure that the behavior change can be attributed to the intervention put in place and not by the extenuating internal or external factors, and also highlights the use of visual analysis. Again, I want to emphasize that this program has transformed me into a more competent special educator. As a classroom teacher, I was immediately able to apply the ABA principles I was learning in the program into my self-contained special education classroom. My understanding of ABA principles allowed for better classroom management, more academic, behavioral, and social teaching, and a better educational experience for my students with disabilities. This was possible because I began to recognize my role in reinforcing and punishing behaviors. I began to take more concrete data and analyze that data more critically. I began to hypothesize the function of behaviors. I began to teach replacement and new socially significant behaviors, and I began to think critically about the interventions I was choosing to implement. Going forward, I plan to use behavior analytic principles for the rest of my academic and professional career. Thank you.